Number 10. The eel with a second set of jaws. Picture the monster from the movie Alien, the mouth that opens and a second mouth lunges out of it. Now stop picturing it because that animal is real. It lives in the ocean and you can watch it on a coral reef tomorrow. The giant moray eel grows longer than a man is tall, and it kills with a piece of machinery hidden in its throat. Most fish swallow by suction, pulling water and prey into the mouth. The moray can barely do that. So it evolved a different, far more disturbing solution. Deep in its throat sits a second set of jaws, lined with hooked teeth. When the moray's front jaws clamp onto a fish, those throat jaws launch forward, shoot up into the back of the mouth, grab the struggling prey, and drag it down into the body. 2 bites, the first to hold, the second to swallow you whole. This was only filmed and understood in 2007, when scientists used high-speed X-ray to catch it happening, and it stunned them, because no other vertebrate on Earth feeds like this. The only other animals that come close are snakes. The moray is the single fish that evolved a grabbing second mouth, and we share the planet with it. It has been peering out of holes in the reef this whole time, and almost nobody knew what it was really doing in there. And it gets stranger. Some smaller morays have taken this throat jaw trick and used it to do something no other fish can: hunt on land. Scientists spent 5 years training snowflake morays and filmed them slithering out of the water to grab and swallow crabs on dry rock, swallowing without any water at all, because the second set of jaws does the work that suction does for every other fish. The moray quietly broke one of the oldest rules of being a fish, the rule that says you need water in your mouth to eat. It is the closest thing the reef has to a creature from another planet, and it has been hiding in plain sight in aquariums around the world this whole time. The giant moray itself is no small thing either. It can reach close to 10 feet and the thickness of a man's thigh. An apex predator of the reef that patrols by night, sliding through cracks too tight for any other large hunter. Divers who have met one up close describe the same unsettling thing. That constant gaping of the mouth is not a threat display. It is simply how the eel breathes, forcing water over its gills, so the monster appears to be perpetually snarling at you while doing nothing more sinister than taking a breath. The giant moray can bite back even after it is dead. Giant morays sit so high on the reef food chain that their flesh concentrates a natural toxin from the smaller fish they eat, and people have been seriously poisoned simply by making a meal of one. The monster does not even need to be alive to put you in a hospital. That's the gentle one. It gets worse from here. Number 9. The dinosaur that survived, and it's still angry. Forget the movies for a second. The raptor you're afraid of is real, it's alive, and it lives in Australia. Here's the fact that most people never fully absorb. Birds are not the descendants of dinosaurs. Birds are dinosaurs. They are the one branch of the dinosaur family that walked through the asteroid and kept going. And of all the birds alive today, one still wears the costume of the nightmare almost perfectly: the cassowary. It stands taller than you. It weighs as much as a grown man. On the inner toe of each foot, it carries a dagger-shaped claw up to 5 inches long, and it can deliver a kick powerful enough to break bone or open a body. It is widely called the most dangerous bird on Earth. Stare at one, and the resemblance to the killers from Jurassic Park is not your imagination. It's ancestry. People have actually been killed by this bird. Its reputation as the most dangerous bird on Earth is not a figure of speech. There are documented cases of cassowaries killing humans with that inner claw, slashing downward with the full weight and power of a 200-pound body behind it. On its head, it carries a tall, helmet-like crest called a casque, ridged and strange, adding to the impression that you are looking at something that stepped out of the Cretaceous rather than a modern forest. And in a final twist, the cassowary may have been one of the very first birds humans ever kept, raised from chicks in New Guinea thousands of years before the chicken was domesticated. We were living alongside our pet dinosaurs long before we thought to tame a barnyard fowl. Its family tree explains why it looks so ancient. The cassowary belongs to an old group of flightless birds that also includes the ostrich, the emu, and the kiwi. A lineage whose roots reach back into the final stretch of the dinosaur age itself, before the asteroid fell. While the giant dinosaurs were dying, the ancestors of these birds were already branching off, carrying the old body plan forward on two running legs. In the rainforests of Australia and New Guinea, the cassowary even plays a role its ancestors might recognize, swallowing large fruits whole and scattering the seeds across miles of forest, a giant gardener in the gloom, shaping the very woodland it stalks through. Listen for its voice if you ever dare get close. The cassowary produces one of the lowest sounds of any bird, a deep, pulsing boom that sits right at the edge of human hearing, a vibration you feel in your chest as much as here, rolling out through the dense rainforest where higher calls would be swallowed by the leaves. It is the sound of something large and ancient announcing itself in the dark, and it carries through the trees like a warning from another age. But here is the honest twist, and it's better than the myth. The cassowary is not the descendant of Velociraptor. It belongs to an ancient line of flightless birds that went its own way. And the real Velociraptor? It was nothing like the movies either. It was covered in feathers and stood about the height of a turkey. So the truth cuts both ways. The scaly green monster from the film never existed. The real one had feathers and stood about hip-high. But here is the part the movie got right after all. A genuine dinosaur with a dagger on its foot is alive in a rainforest this very moment. Evolution invented a raptor, and Australia quietly decided to keep one. Number 8. The reptile that looks assembled from spare parts. Some animals look ancient. This one looks like it was designed by something that had never seen Earth before. The gharial is a crocodilian, a cousin of the alligator, but stretched and rebuilt into something almost unrecognizable. Its snout is absurdly long and impossibly thin, a narrow rod of jaw lined with more than 100 interlocking needle teeth. That shape is a specialist's weapon. A broad crocodile jaw is built to grab and crush. The gharial's thin snout slices sideways through water with almost no resistance, letting it snap shut on a darting fish before the fish even registers the strike. It is a living fishing spear. And then there's the thing on the end of the male's nose, a bulbous, rounded growth that looks like a clay pot stuck onto his face. Local people thought it resembled a pot called a gara, and that is where the animal got its name. It isn't decoration. The male uses it to buzz and hum and blow bubbles, broadcasting to females and rivals across the river. A crocodile with a built-in instrument on its snout. That thin snout is packed with teeth, well over 100 of them, thin and sharp and angled, perfect for gripping a slippery fish that has no chance of wriggling free. And the male's strange nasal pot is one of the only examples in the entire crocodilian world of an obvious visible difference between the sexes, a structure that turns part of his face into a resonating chamber. Across the water, a big male's hum can carry for a remarkable distance, a low, buzzing announcement of his size and his territory in a language of vibration. Its lineage is one of the oldest distinct branches of the crocodilian tree, a design that has been refined for tens of millions of years and is now collapsing in a few decades. River dams, tangled fishing nets that drown the air-breathing reptiles, and the loss of the clean sandbanks where they bask and lay their eggs have crushed the population. From tens of thousands, the gharial has fallen to only a few hundred breeding adults clinging to a handful of rivers in India and Nepal. It is one of the most endangered large animals on the planet, an alien survivor of the deep past, quietly being erased while the world looks the other way. And here is the gentle irony of this particular monster. Despite its fearsome, spiky, 100-toothed grin, the gharial is almost harmless to us, That thin snout is built for fish and nothing else. It physically cannot take large prey, so unlike its man-eating cousins, it has essentially no history of hunting people. The most alien-looking crocodilian on Earth is also one of the most gentle, a fish hunter being driven extinct while the reptiles that actually threaten humans do just fine. The gharial belongs to a lineage far older than the rivers it now haunts, and it is barely holding on. There are only a few hundred breeding adults left in the wild. A creature that watched the world change for tens of millions of years could blink out within hours, and most people have never even heard its name. Number 7. The giant that breathes through its skin. There is a river in Japan where if you reach into the cold water under a rock, you might touch something the length of a grown human that has been hiding there, essentially unchanged since before the dinosaurs hit their peak. The Japanese giant salamander grows to around 5 feet long. It is a soft, wrinkled, flattened thing with tiny eyes and a wide, flat head, and it looks less like an animal than like a piece of the riverbed that decided to move. It has almost no lungs worth mentioning. Instead, it breathes through its skin. Those heavy folds and wrinkles along its body are not age or fat. They are surface area, extra skin to soak oxygen straight out of the cold, clean water it lives in. It is a creature that drowns in air and lives by absorbing the river through its hide. It hunts by being patient to a degree that would drive any other predator mad. It lies on the stream bed, nearly invisible against the stones, and waits, sometimes for hours, for a fish or a crab or a frog to wander within reach. Then the wide head swings sideways with sudden, shocking speed. The mouth opens, and a rush of water carries the prey straight in. It has no need for sharp eyes. The eyes are tiny and nearly useless. It feels the water move and reads the world through ripples and chemical traces, a hunter operating almost entirely by touch and taste in the cold dark of the riverbed. Its even larger cousin in China grows bigger still, approaching 6 feet, the largest amphibian on the planet. But all of them are vanishing fast, collected for food and choked out by pollution, so that an animal which outlasted the dinosaurs now struggles to outlast us.
And there is a cousin you may not expect, living quietly in the rivers of the eastern United States, a smaller relative called the hellbender. The same ancient body plan washed up on another continent entirely. Together, they are the last survivors of a family that was once spread across the northern world. Scientists do debate just how unchanged these animals truly are, since the soft details of a living salamander rarely fossilize. But the basic blueprint, the flat head, the wrinkled skin, the bulky aquatic body, has held its shape across a span of time so vast it barely fits in the imagination, while continents drifted and the entire cast of life on land was replaced around it. It defends itself, when it must, by oozing a sticky, foul mucus from that wrinkled skin, and it can live for decades, some individuals passing 60 or 70 years in the same stretch of river.
In 2019, scientists even realized that what they had lumped together as one species was several, and that one of them, a giant from southern China, is the largest amphibian that has ever been known to live, a creature that can, in theory, pass 6 feet. What makes it a true monster of deep time is how little it has changed. The family it belongs to stretches back roughly 170 million years, and the fossils of its ancient relatives are almost indistinguishable from the animal alive today. While the dinosaurs rose, ruled, and vanished, while whole worlds of life came and went above the water, this animal simply stayed at the bottom of the stream, flat and patient and breathing through its skin, waiting out every catastrophe the planet could throw at it. It simply found a shape that worked and kept it, while the world above the water tore itself apart and rebuilt itself again and again. Number 6. The pink shark with the slingshot mouth. Most sharks look like sharks. This one looks like something that washed up from a nightmare and was never meant to be seen. The goblin shark lives in the deep sea, far below the reach of light, and almost everything about it is wrong in the best way. Its skin is pale, semi-translucent pink, because down where no light reaches, the blood vessels show right through the thin skin. Its snout is a long, flat blade extending out over its mouth, and that mouth is the horror. At rest, the jaws sit tucked back under the snout, almost hidden. When prey drifts close, the entire jaw apparatus fires forward, launching out of the face on stalks of cartilage to snatch the victim, then retracts. It is a mouth that leaves the head to hunt and then comes home. That jaw strike is one of the most extreme feeding motions known in any shark. The whole apparatus is slung forward on long, hinged cartilage and fired out at the prey faster than the eye can follow. A catapult of teeth that punches out, grabs, and reels back in a fraction of a second. And along that long, flat snout lies another weapon. A dense scatter of jelly-filled pores that detect the tiny electric fields given off by living animals. In water where there is no light at all, the goblin shark does not need to see you. It feels the faint electricity of your heartbeat and aims its slingshot jaws straight at it. Almost everything about its body is built for the crushing, lightless world it lives in, often 1,000 meters down or more. Its body is soft and flabby, its muscles weak, because down there speed is useless and energy is scarce. It drifts and ambushes rather than chases.
Most specimens ever found were hauled up by accident in deep-sea fishing gear, dead or dying from the change in pressure, which is why for so long the living animal was a near-total mystery. One captured years ago was estimated at close to 20 feet. The fossil teeth of its vanished relatives turn up in rock far older than the dinosaurs' last days, the scattered remains of a once thriving family, now reduced to this single ghostly heir. The first time anyone captured living footage of a goblin shark in the wild came only recently, after well over a century of knowing the animal almost solely from corpses. That is how completely the deep hides its monsters. This one drifts as far down as 1,000 meters and more, through water blacker than any night, a slow pink shadow with a blade for a face, hunting by electricity alone in a place the sun has never reached and almost no human eye has ever seen it living.
For a long time, it was a phantom, known only from a handful of accidental catches in deep water. And it is not new. The goblin shark is the last living member of a shark family roughly 125 million years old. Every other branch of that family is gone, recorded only in fossil teeth in the rock. This single, pink, blade-faced, slingshot-jawed survivor is all that remains, swimming in the dark 1,000 meters down, the final ghost of an ancient dynasty that the rest of the world thinks is extinct. Now the list stops being about strange survivors and starts being about giants. Number 5. The dragon that was never supposed to be a dragon. You already know this animal, the Komodo dragon. The largest lizard alive, 10 feet of muscle and serrated teeth and toxic, blood-thinning venom, fast enough to run down a deer and patient enough to follow a wounded buffalo for days. And the story of where it came from is far stranger than the one in the textbooks. For decades, the explanation went like this. The Komodo is just a normal lizard that washed up on a few small Indonesian islands. With no large predators to compete with, it slowly grew enormous. Island gigantism. A little lizard that got big in isolation. It is a tidy story. It appears in countless books. And the fossils have quietly taken it apart. In 2009, paleontologists comparing fossils found something that pointed the other way. The Komodo dragon most likely did not evolve its size on those islands at all. It evolved in Australia. For the last 4 million years, Australia was home to a dynasty of giant monitor lizards, an entire age of dragons, and the Komodo was one of them. Its largest cousin was a monster called Megalania, a land lizard that stretched perhaps 16 feet or more, the biggest terrestrial lizard the world has ever known. That giant and the others all died out. Around the same time, so much of the world's megafauna vanished.
The Komodo dragon was simply the one that survived, retreating to a handful of islands as the empire collapsed around it. And it is genuinely venomous, which itself was only confirmed in recent years, overturning the old belief that its bite simply infected victims with filthy bacteria. The truth is more efficient and more frightening. Special glands in its lower jaw deliver venom that drops blood pressure and stops the blood from clotting. So a bitten animal that escapes the first attack bleeds and weakens until it collapses, and the dragon, following patiently on its trail, simply waits to collect the body. A 10-foot lizard with serrated teeth, a venomous bite, and the stamina to track a dying buffalo for days is not a relic. It is a fully modern, fully lethal apex predator. The journey that brought it to those islands is now written in fossils across the region.
The Komodo's ancestors evolved on mainland Australia, then spread westward as sea levels and land bridges shifted, reaching the Indonesian island of Flores hundreds of thousands of years ago. There, remarkably, the dragons stayed almost exactly the same size they had always been. The island did not shrink them or grow them. For a while, they even shared Flores with a species of tiny human, a 3-foot-tall relative of ours, and with miniature elephants the dragons likely hunted. The old textbook idea that the Komodo bloated up in island isolation or shrank down to chase dwarf elephants has simply collapsed under the weight of the bones. The dragon arrived already a giant. The dragon has one last trick that belongs in a horror story. Female Komodos have been documented producing healthy young with no male involved at all, fertilizing their own eggs in a kind of virgin birth, so that a single female stranded alone could, in principle, found a whole new population by herself. Fewer than a few thousand of these animals remain in the wild, clinging to their handful of islands, the final survivors of the Age of Dragons, now facing a more modern kind of extinction. So when you look at a Komodo dragon, you are not looking at a fluke of island life. You are looking at the last living member of an age of giant predatory lizards, a true dragon that outlived every other dragon on Earth. It didn't grow into a monster on a quiet island. It was born from a lost world of them, and it is the only one left. Number 4. The shark that was born before your country. Somewhere in the black, freezing water of the North Atlantic right now, there is very likely a shark swimming slowly through the dark that was already alive when the Pilgrims landed, when Newton was writing, when the world had never heard the word electricity. The Greenland shark is one of the largest predatory sharks on the planet, and it is built for cold and patience. It moves so slowly through the icy deep that biologists nicknamed it the sleeper shark. It would seem almost impossible that it catches anything at all. And for centuries, nobody had any idea how long it lived, until scientists found a way to read the age of these animals from the proteins locked inside the lens of the eye, proteins that form before birth and never change. What they found, published in 2016, rewrote the record books. The Greenland shark is the longest-lived vertebrate known to science. The animals they tested ranged across centuries, and the oldest individual was estimated at around 400 years old, with a possible range stretching past 500. Stop and sit with that. A shark alive today could have been born in the 1600s. It was swimming, slowly, through the same cold dark, while every event in modern history played out on the surface above it. Empires rose and fell in the time it took this single animal to reach old age. The dating method itself reads like science fiction. A shark's body is almost impossible to age, with none of the growth rings other animals leave behind. But the lens at the center of the eye is different. It forms before the animal is even born and never renews itself. So the chemistry locked inside it is a frozen record of the year the shark came into the world. Those traces were left in the ocean partly by mid-century nuclear tests. By measuring them in the lens, scientists could finally pin down the shark's age. The numbers were staggering. There is more. The Greenland shark grows at a crawl, perhaps a centimeter a year, and it does not even become capable of reproducing until it is around 150 years old. An individual does not reach parenthood until it has lived longer than almost any other animal lives in total.
Its flesh is laced with a natural antifreeze compound so toxic it can intoxicate a sled dog. And many carry a parasite that dangles from the eye, slowly blinding them. Though in the lightless deep where they hunt, sight may barely matter at all. To the people of the far north, this slow giant was woven into life in the strangest way. Its flesh is so saturated with that toxic antifreeze that eating it fresh can leave a person staggering as if drunk, and dogs poisoned. Yet in Iceland, the meat is buried, fermented for months, and dried into a notorious dish, a way of taming a poison that took generations to perfect. Think about the timelines colliding here. A single Greenland shark, hauled up cold from the deep today, may have been gliding through that black water when those very traditions were first being invented. A living animal older than the customs built around its kind. It does almost everything in slow motion, its heart beating only a handful of times a minute. A creature that seems to exist at a different speed than the rest of the living world. It barely seems to move through the water at all, cruising at a speed slower than a person strolling, which only deepens the mystery of how it catches the seals found inside it. Some scientists suspect it takes them by stealth as they sleep in the water. Everything about it runs at the pace of the deep cold, a heart beating only a few times a minute, growth measured in fractions of an inch a year, and a life that may stretch toward 5 centuries, making this slow gray shape, very possibly, the oldest living animal with a backbone on Earth. This is no harmless drifter. Inside the stomachs of Greenland sharks, scientists have found the remains of seals, fish, and, astonishingly, pieces of land animals, including reindeer and even polar bear. Whether hunted or scavenged, it tells you what kind of mouth is moving through that water. A predator that measures its life not in years but in centuries, gliding through the dark so slowly that time itself seems to mean something different to it than it does to us. Number 3. The eye the size of your head in the deep Antarctic. Far beneath the surface of the Southern Ocean, in crushing cold and total darkness, lives an animal so large and so rarely seen that for most of history it was indistinguishable from myth. The kraken was a sailor's legend. The colossal squid is real, and in some ways it is worse than the legend. By sheer mass, nothing without a backbone comes close to it. Not the longest, that title goes to its cousin, the giant squid. But for pure bulk and weight and muscle, this is the heaviest invertebrate alive. It can weigh as much as a grand piano, and it is armed in a way the giant squid is not.
Along its 2 feeding tentacles sit rows of hooks, dozens of them. Many of them rotate, swiveling to dig in and lock down whatever the squid seizes. This is not an animal that grabs you, it is one that anchors you to itself. We have seen fewer than a dozen of these animals intact in all of history. Almost everything we know is pieced together from broken carcasses, from a handful caught by accident in deep Antarctic fishing nets, and from the beaks found inside the stomachs of sperm whales, which hunt them in the deep. We know the 2 predators meet down there in the dark because sperm whales surface carrying round scars from squid suckers and hooks, the marks of battles no human has ever witnessed, fought thousands of feet below the waves between the largest toothed predator on Earth and the largest eyes the planet has ever grown.
The one good look science got came in 2007, when an Antarctic fishing boat hauled up a living colossal squid, almost by accident. A female weighing nearly half a ton, now preserved and displayed in a museum in New Zealand as one of the rarest specimens on Earth. From bodies like hers, and from the giant beaks pulled from whale stomachs, Researchers infer the rest, that the biggest individuals may be larger still, that they hang nearly motionless in the deep to save energy, kept afloat by ammonia-rich flesh, drifting like a vast cold trap with those enormous eyes wide open. It is less a hunter that chases, and more a patient ambush the size of a small car, waiting in the dark for something to blunder close. For comparison, its better-known cousin, the giant squid, is longer but far lighter, a slender thing beside this bulk. The colossal squid is the heavyweight, the true monster of mass. Living so deep and so far from us, it has almost no natural enemy except the sperm whale. And so the relationship between those two animals has become one of the great hidden dramas of the planet, a clash of titans played out in permanent darkness. The largest predatory mouth on Earth against the largest eye, somewhere beneath the Antarctic ice, over and over, entirely unseen. But the detail that stops scientists cold is the eyes. The colossal squid has the largest eyes of any animal alive, and very likely the largest eyes any animal has ever grown. Each one is around 11 inches across, roughly the size of a dinner plate, with a lens the size of an orange. Nothing else in the history of life, no whale, no dinosaur, no fish, is known to have grown an eye that big. And researchers think they know why. Down in that lightless deep, the squid's greatest enemy is the sperm whale, which dives thousands of feet to hunt it. A sperm whale moving through the dark disturbs the faint glow of tiny bioluminescent creatures, lighting up a ghostly halo around itself. An eye that enormous can catch that faint, distant glimmer, giving the squid a few seconds of warning before the jaws arrive. It grew those impossible eyes for a single reason, to see the hunter coming through the black. Number 2, the serpent that should have died with the giants. Slide into a slow, warm river in the Amazon, and you may be sharing it with the heaviest snake alive on Earth. A snake so strong it does not bother to poison its prey or chase it down. It simply wraps around it and stops it from breathing. The green anaconda can grow beyond 20 feet and weigh more than 200 pounds, thicker around than a grown man's torso. It is an ambush engine, lying submerged with only its eyes and nostrils breaking the surface, waiting for a capybara, a deer, a caiman, even a jaguar to come to the water's edge. Then it strikes, coils, and tightens, and every time the victim exhales, the snake squeezes the new slack away, until the prey can no longer draw breath at all. It is one of the few animals on Earth large and strong enough to genuinely regard a human as possible prey. The killing itself is a slow, mechanical horror. The old idea that a constrictor crushes or suffocates its prey is only half right. What the anaconda really does is wait for the victim to breathe out, then cinch tighter, stealing the space the lungs need to refill. With each failed breath, the coils close further, until the animal cannot inhale at all, and the squeeze is powerful enough to stop blood flow to the brain within seconds. The prey is often unconscious long before the snake begins the hours-long task of swallowing it whole, head first, jaws walking over the body. Titanoboa also left us a chilling clue about its world. A snake is cold-blooded, its body driven by the heat around it. And for a serpent to grow that staggeringly large, the climate it lived in must have been brutally, consistently hot, hotter than today's tropics. The giant snake is, in effect, a thermometer reading from a vanished greenhouse Earth, and it may not even have been the only one of its scale. In 2024, scientists in India described the fossils of another titanic serpent, a creature that may have rivaled or even exceeded Titanoboa in length, hinting that the age just after the dinosaurs was, for a time, a true age of giant snakes. The anaconda is what remains of that lineage, shrunk to fit a cooler world, but carrying the same ancient blueprint for monstrous size. And the way it breeds is its own small nightmare. In the breeding season, a single large female may be swarmed by a dozen or more smaller males at once, the whole writhing mass knotting together in the water for weeks in what biologists call a breeding ball.
The female is the giant of the species, often several times the weight of any male. And when it is over, she has been known to make a meal of one of her own suitors, turning the act of creating new life directly into her next kill. But the anaconda is a shadow of what its kind once was, and this is where the story turns from frightening to humbling. The anaconda belongs to a lineage of giant snakes that reaches deep into the age of reptiles. And just after the dinosaurs died, in the steaming swamps of what is now Colombia, that lineage produced a true colossus. Its name is Titanoboa. It stretched around 40 feet long, weighed well over a ton, and was thick enough that standing beside it, the top of its body would reach above your waist. It was the largest snake that has ever existed, a predator that ruled the rivers of a world recovering from apocalypse, big enough to swallow crocodiles whole. Titanoboa is gone, but the family did not end with it.
The anaconda gliding through the Amazon today is the living heir of that dynasty of giant serpents, a smaller, surviving echo of the largest snake the planet ever produced. When you look at it, you are not just looking at a big snake. You are looking at what is left of an age when snakes grew large enough to eat the rulers of the rivers. Number 1. The last hunter of a lost empire. We end with an animal you think you completely understand, and the reason it is number 1 is that almost everything the average person believes about it is the opposite of the truth. The saltwater crocodile is the largest reptile alive. A big male runs over 1,000 pounds and more than 20 feet, with a bite powerful enough to crush bone and turtle shell. It can take a water buffalo. It can take a shark. It launches its entire body out of the water in a heartbeat to seize prey that thought it was safe on the bank. It is, by any honest measure, the most formidable ambush predator walking the earth today. And people look at it and say the same tired thing. Crocodiles are living fossils, primitive creatures that never changed, left over from the age of dinosaurs. That is wrong, and the real story is far more extraordinary. Crocodiles are not unchanged relics. Their lineage, the crocodilomorphs, goes back about 230 million years. And over that vast span, they were one of the most wildly experimental, diverse groups of predators the planet has ever produced. There were crocodiles built like greyhounds, long-legged and fast, that galloped across dry land chasing prey. There were crocodiles that gave up the land entirely and went to sea, evolving flippers and tail flukes like dolphins, cruising the open ocean. There were even crocodiles that gave up meat altogether and evolved complex, grinding teeth to eat plants. Galloping crocodiles, swimming crocodiles, vegetarian crocodiles.
An entire lost empire of forms, filling roles we would never associate with the animal today. These were not minor variations on the crocodile you know. Some of the land-going crocodiles of the dinosaur age stood high on long limbs, with deep, dog-like skulls, and ran down prey across open ground like mammalian carnivores. Out in the oceans, an entire branch abandoned the shore for good. Their limbs became paddles, their tails grew swimming flukes, their skulls stretched and streamlined until they looked uncannily like dolphins, hunting fish in the open Jurassic Sea tens of millions of years before the first dolphin existed. And on land, again and again, separate lineages of crocodiles evolved the elaborate, bumpy, grinding teeth of plant eaters, trading the killer's bite for a salad. The crocodile body plan turned out to be one of the most versatile in the history of land vertebrates. The numbers on the living animal alone are staggering. Its bite is among the most powerful ever measured. Thousands of pounds of force. It crushes bone and turtle shell without slowing down. And the basic design of those jaws was already snapping shut 100 million years ago. It ranges across a vast stretch of the world, from the coasts of India through Southeast Asia to northern Australia. ruling river mouths and estuaries, and it carries special glands on its tongue to shed salt, letting it cross open ocean between islands, a freshwater hunter that conquered the sea a second time. It has shared rivers and coastlines with human beings for our entire existence, and it has never once stopped being the thing at the top. Give those vanished crocodiles their due by name, because they deserve it. In the rivers and on the plains of the dinosaur age prowled forms like a boar-faced hunter with fangs like a wild pig and long running legs, and a hoofed-toed killer that chased prey across open ground on its toes like a horse. Out in the Jurassic seas cruised the true sea crocodiles, smooth and finned and tail-driven, some of them the length of a bus, the apex predators of their waters. They looked nothing like the animal sunning itself on a riverbank today, and yet they were all crocodiles, every one. The reptile we dismiss as a brainless leftover is the surviving twig of one of the most explosively creative branches life on land has ever grown. And here is the part that should give you chills. That empire was tested by the worst catastrophes in Earth's history. The crocodile line did not just survive the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. It had already survived an even greater mass extinction before that, at the end of the Triassic. Twice, the world burned and emptied, and twice, the crocodiles walked out the other side. But each catastrophe shaved the empire down. The galloping ones died. The ocean-going ones died. The plant-eaters died.
What survived every time were not the most spectacular specialists, but the adaptable generalists. The semi-aquatic ambush hunters, flexible enough to eat almost anything and wait out almost anything. And the diversity it came from was almost comically strange by modern standards. There were crocodiles barely larger than a cat, and others that dwarfed any alive today. There were forms with armored, almost mammal-like teeth, forms with blunt herbivore grinders, forms with the slashing blades of a pure carnivore. For much of the age of dinosaurs, if you wanted to see the most varied, inventive predators around, you would not look at the dinosaurs at all. You would look at their crocodile relatives, quietly running riot through every niche the world had to offer, on land, in rivers, and far out to sea. Think about what that filtering really means.
Each time the world ended, it was the flashy specialists, the runners, the swimmers, the plant-eaters, perfectly tuned to one way of life, who vanished. And each time, the survivors were the unspecialized, adaptable generalists who could eat whatever was left and wait out the long dark. The crocodile did not endure because it was a perfect finished design that never needed to change. It endured because, at the deepest level, it kept change in reserve, holding on to a flexible, do-anything toughness while its dazzling cousins painted themselves into corners and died. The saltwater crocodile is what made it through that filter. Not a primitive leftover, but the last apex hunter of a dynasty that once ruled the land, the sea, and the rivers at the same time. Everything flashier is gone. The galloping crocodiles are gone. The dolphin crocodiles are gone. The plant eaters are gone. This one is still here, lying in the shallows of a river mouth with only its eyes above the surface, doing the same patient thing its family has done through two ends of the world. When it watches you from the water, you are not looking at something that failed to evolve. You are looking at the one design stubborn enough to survive everything that killed the rest. Finale. Look back at the 10 of them. An eel with a second mouth in its throat, a feathered dinosaur with a dagger on its foot, a reptile with a pot on its nose, and a salamander that breathes through its skin, a pink shark whose jaws leave its face, a dragon from a lost age of dragons, a shark older than your nation, an eye the size of a dinner plate in the Antarctic dark, the shrunken heir of the largest snake that ever lived, and the last champion of an empire of crocodiles. And notice the thread that runs through so many of them. The salamander that never bothered to change.
The crocodile that survived by staying flexible. Again and again, the animals that walked through the planet's worst catastrophes were not the most specialized or the most spectacular. They were the patient and the adaptable, the ones built to wait out an apocalypse rather than rule a single good afternoon. Survival across the deep history of life has rarely gone to the most fearsome. It has gone to the most stubborn. So here is the thought to leave you with. Right now, as this video ends, in the black water a mile beneath the Arctic ice, a shark that was born before your country existed is still moving slowly through the dark. It has never seen the sun. It does not know we are here. And it will still be swimming in that same silence long after every one of us is gone. Until next time.